Okay, everybody, part two, how I clean my intercooler. At this stage, I've got the intercooler out of the ski. All the ends are open, not the cap. That's not off. That's another story. What I do is I wrap a plastic bag around this where the hose goes on and the bottom one as well. And I wrap tape around, maybe a cable tie. It's just to seal it off because I'm going to pour a gallon of gas in this end, or solvent, whatever you want to use, roughly a gallon of gas. And then I'll wrap plastic around this as well, and cable tie and whatever, so the end will be plugged off. I mean, you can plug it with anything you want. That's just what I use. This will be plugged off. These two will be plugged off, one and the bottom one, the bottom hose there. So your intercooler will be out. You will have poured gas, solvent, whatever you're using. And because I don't have the intercooler out, but you can get the idea. What I do is pretend this is your intercooler, this block of wood. And I'm doing it in a well-ventilated area outside, is I gently roll the intercooler so the gas or solvent is sloshing around. Then I turn for maybe a minute or two like that. Slowly, because there's fins in it. I wouldn't want to bend the fins. I'm not sure if it could. But, I wouldn't be doing that. Maybe it could bend the fins, but I go very gently. Then I turn the intercooler this way a couple minutes. Roll it over a couple minutes, just rock it, maybe 5 minutes altogether. Then I'll take the plastic off this end and I'll pour all the contents of the fuel, solvent, whatever I'm using as a cleaning agent into a clean bucket. Have a look at it, see what's in there. Obviously, before you even put the fuel in it or solvent, you can take a flashlight and look inside the intercooler. And you can see if it's plugged up. Sometimes it gets plugged up with like a milky cheese. Almost looks like glue all over it. That could be in there. There could just be a lot of fogging oil, whatever. Anyways, you can have a look, take a photo, post it, if it's really dirty. Anyways, after you drain the fuel or solvent out into a bucket, just make a note of what's in there, and then what I do is fill it with water, empty it, fill it with water 3-4 times. Take these end bags off, the plastic, and drain the intercooler. Let it air out for 5-6 hours in a drained position, like in a slope. So any water's draining out. Do it out in the hot sun, all the better. And make sure there's no fumes. And then what I do is I use a blower to blow it out. One of these, again, well ventilated. If there's any question about fumes, leave it, whatever you want to do. Don't, remember, this creates sparks. You could put an extension hose on it and have this 10 feet away if you're concerned. But, if you've let it sit for 5-6 hours, the intercooler should be fine. You've already rinsed it with water a few times, and if you want to be perfectionist, maybe use distilled water as your final rinse in case there's any heavy minerals that could collect on the cooling fins on the intercooler. Anyways, and I use this, but I don't blast it. I do it for about, an hour total. I go voom, voom, and I take this off because it's too directed. I do it with this. I don't give it full power because I'm afraid of the power of this maybe bending one of the cooling fins. I'm just not sure. I'm just very careful about that. Some guys use a tiny little fan and they put it in. Obviously, this is pointed into one of the ports, into one of the ports, and the air is going through the intercooler out those other two ports here, or vice versa, however you want to do it. Have the intercooler in a slope position, and then once you think you've got it dried out, I would leave it for another, for another full day, maybe 2 days. Or put a small fan on it, and leave it for 2 days. Make sure it's good and dry. You don't want any moisture in there. check all these bolts. I believe it's 10 Newton meters. Do not take these end caps off. There's one here and there's one on that side. You can see I took mine off when I was learning. I took them off, and what happens is the gasket swells up, and you can't, well, you can reuse it, but you got to cut it down the center, and it's a real nightmare actually. These are the gaskets. If you take those end caps off, you don't need to, but if you do, this gasket will elongate about this much. Wow, maybe this much. You can't fit it back in. You actually got to snip it in the middle and resize it and put it in, and then put a bunch of something like this. I use 3-bond. I actually cut this one in mine. It's a cut gasket. The O-ring gaskets are both cut, and Corey sent me these ones. If I ever have a boost leak, you know, air bypassing the gasket, I'll put these in. So anyways, you air it out really well while you're at it. If you find a lot of that cheesy, milky stuff clogging the ends of it before you cleaned it, chances are it's in this hose. It's in the bottom hose. Could be up in here, into your throttle body, into your intake manifold. Oh yeah, look up my thread. I think it's called 193 hours, 300X with no previous maintenance. It was a nightmare. It was all plugged up with that milky, creamy stuff all the way into the intake manifold. So while you have the intercooler out, good time to get in there with a flashlight and check inside these hoses. See, like I say, if you got a lot of that milky, creamy stuff in the cooling fins, you can look in this one, you can look in that one, you can look in that kind of on an angle. You'll know it's probably traveled further up. If you're like 100 hours on your ski or something, you've never cleaned the intercooler, or it's never been done, that crap might be all the way up into your motor, into your intake. So anyways, you've aired it out. Really, that's it. You've taken it out. You can put it back in, and that's all there is to it. Just do it in a well-ventilated area. I've done it twice. I think 50 hours is a good mark to pull it out at. And when you've got it out, I would check all bolts and hoses back there. Check everything in the back. You've got everything out. Check all those hose clamps. Go all the way around. Have a good look at your supercharger belt. If you've never taken the cover off, now is probably a good time to take the supercharger belt cover off so you can clean that area, and just generally have a good look at the whole area. And I probably missed something, but I think that's enough to get you going. Okay.